Sup, guys? It's Toad back with you as usual. Hopefully, my audio issues are behind me. Hopefully, the audio is working. I guess I'll check it out again just to make sure. Yep, seems like it's working. All right, let's go. Let's go. 1-0 yesterday. UTEP, good call by me, obviously. UTEP, easy cover by UTEP. I think they were wire to wire covering that game. They were in that game potentially had a chance to win that game outright, man. I mean, I wish, because whenever I play an underdog like that, I do put a little bit on the money line at the very least. I think I had 3% maybe of that bet on the money line. So I was like, please come on and hit on the money line. It was so close, man. I mean, UTEP, I don't think they were ever behind by more than like 7 or 8 in the game. It gets to that point where it's like, just hang in there, baby. Don't let the lead increase further, which they did not. They hung in there for sure, and they cut the lead back down to 1 in the final like minute or 2 minutes or something. They had a couple of chances at the end. Came down to a final possession where they were down 3 with, like, literally they took the last shot of the game, a three-pointer, three-point attempt that could have potentially tied the game, and I think it went off the rim. I had it on. I think it was during the Tower Game pre-show or something like that. So you guys might be able to go see that if you're subscribed to the Patreon. All right, let's keep this momentum going, man. Let's go on. Let's talk about today. We got a small slate, so I like having smaller slates here so we can kind of focus a little bit more easily. We got college basketball. There's not a whole lot going on here. I will point out, I think Virginia Tech, you could argue they're in a pretty bad spot. I mean, they're coming off a run of big games. I know they're on a huge losing streak, but the last game they came off of, after playing all these like step up opponents, basically all these big conference opponents at the very least. I know they're a big conference team too, but they're not very good in the ACC this year. And they had this big ACC matchup. This might have been their conference home opener. I think it was conference opener as well against Pitt. They hung in there in this game, man. We got the video visuals there for you to watch Virginia Tech lose this game. Virginia Tech was winning for almost this entire game, and then they blew it right near the end. They were still winning by 7 with several minutes left in the game, 5 minutes left basically, and they wound up losing the game. Brutal loss, losing to a pretty good ranked Pittsburgh team. So Virginia Tech coming off of that, I don't want any part of Virginia Tech here. They are up from -13.5 to -15 and have 67% of tickets, 57% of the cash on North Carolina A&T. But do I really want to try to take a shot on NC A&T? No, not really. I mean, they're coming off a big game as well. Step-up game against UNC Greensboro, who's an in-state bigger brother there, basically. But they didn't play that well in that game, so the lean would still be to take the points with NC A&T, but I'm not going to do that. No, thank you. And then the one actual big game on the slate, which I'm not playing, is the Battle of Iowa, the big rivalry between Iowa State and Iowa. I'm pretty sure they play every year in both basketball and football. And what can we even say about this game, really? I mean, Iowa State is the better team here. I mean, the rankings makers are telling you that, but obviously the rankings makers are liars in a lot of cases. But in this case, I mean, the odds makers are telling you this as well, with Iowa State being a 6.5, 7-point favorite or whatever. I don't think there's a whole lot to really figure out based on the situation here. I mean, Iowa State is coming off blasting Jackson State. I mean, a much lesser opponent there, but still, Iowa State, they were coming off a big win over Marquette, and they didn't even take their foot off the gas and just pounded Jackson State. So I think that's kind of a momentum continuer. The one negative you can really say about Iowa State in this game, as far as the situation goes, is that this is the first true road game of the season, so they are going to go into a hostile environment here. Having to go to Iowa City, I believe is where Iowa is. So from Ames to Iowa City, but Iowa State's still somewhat familiar with the territory. I mean, Iowa State, they're still in the state of Iowa. They're still going to have some of their people show up in this game as well, and I mean, that's about it. I mean, they're used to playing in Iowa because they think they do play at Iowa every other year for the most part, so I don't know if that's going to matter that much. Iowa is the lesser of the two teams, though they are 6-0 at home, but Iowa hasn't really beaten anybody good at home. I mean, the best win at home, I guess, is this Washington State one. Or no, I guess it's the Northwestern game. The Northwestern game's a nice win. I mean, Northwestern's not that bad. It was a Big Ten win as well. But Iowa's coming off 2 big Big Ten battles because they're coming off that, and then they went to Michigan and played them to within 2. And Michigan, pretty good team this year, man. I mean, they're flying under the radar right now, so that was a big game. So as far as, like, which team is going to be potentially more tired in this game. I think it's going to be Iowa after playing 2 Big Ten games really close, basically to the wire. Pretty tough Big Ten games, not easy opponents. And now coming off of that, I mean, obviously they're going to be focused still coming in to face Iowa State here, but I don't think it's exactly the greatest spot to try to fade Iowa State here. Iowa State's up from 4.5 to 6.5, 80% of the tickets and 95% of the cash on Iowa. So it looks like even though the line has moved up on Iowa State, there is some money maybe coming in on the Iowa side. No thank you on that one, but where I will say thank you and please, please, sir, may I have some more, is the game I'm actually playing is UT-Arlington plus 8.5. This is the spot, man. This is a letdown spot for Arkansas State. I mean, yeah, they played a couple of pretty good competitive games. They played competitively at Alabama somehow. I mean, Alabama may have just overlooked them. It's possible these bigger conference teams have just kind of overlooked them because Arkansas State, as far as their wins are concerned, I mean, they're against okay teams for the most part. Some bad teams and some okay teams. Not totally impressive wins. And then this loss to Rice is pretty ugly in here. And then Hofstra, I mean, Hofstra's not that bad. But then Jackson State, that same Jackson State team that got annihilated by like 50 against Iowa State. Arkansas State only beat them by 2. I mean, we know Arkansas State's not on the same level as Iowa State, not even close, but still. Playing against Jackson State and only beating them by 2, I mean, that's just ridiculous. This Jackson State team is not good at all. Arkansas State was a 16.5-point favorite in that one and really dropped the ball. They may have been looking ahead to this Memphis game, though. And they went on the road, only a second road game of the season to face ranked Memphis. And what did they do? Yeah, they pulled off the upset as a double-digit underdog in that one. I mentioned I leaned Arkansas State in that game, especially because I thought Arkansas State may have been caught looking ahead to this game, and that's why they played so badly against Jackson State. I thought we were going to get a good effort from them. We did, and they beat Memphis, man. This is a crazy win. Arkansas State dominated them, so I think they're going to be in a letdown spot. That was like win of the season type of stuff, man. I mean, Arkansas State, location-wise, not that far away from Memphis. You get to play basically one of the big boys, and you go into their place and beat them like that, and not only beat them, but you lead the entire way, basically, and just kind of embarrass them on their own floor. That's insane. I mean, as a double-digit underdog, Arkansas State coming off this, I think they're going to be feeling pretty high on themselves, man. And statistically, the game was close, at least, so neither team really shot particularly well from the field in general. Kind of a lot of turnovers in the game on both sides, but Arkansas State, they like to play a fast tempo, and I think this game was at a fast tempo with a lot of turnovers. So that's what you can say about what happened with Arkansas State there. But now coming off of this game, they're coming back home. They get Texas Arlington, who I don't think they're really going to necessarily pay that much attention to. I mean, Arlington's been okay the last couple of seasons, but not really a team I think that's going to really draw Arkansas State's focus. And then Arkansas State does have UAB up next, which I think is a bigger game as well because UAB is at least a bigger conference school in the American Athletics. So Arkansas State may be in a little bit of a sandwich here, and that's a turnaround time of only 3 days to go play UAB. And Memphis, they didn't play that long ago either. They only had, that was on the 8th, so they've only had 3 days off, whereas UT-Arlington, they've had a lot of days off, man. They're the more rested team here. They've been off since the 2nd, where they had an easy win over UL Monroe. I don't think they're going to care about that, and they repeat. They play against UL Monroe, I guess, in this weird home-and-home thing. Coming up in 2 days, but I don't think that's the game they're going to be focused on, man. Arkansas State's been playing well. They just beat Memphis. UT-Arlington's been off for a long time. I think they're going to show up for this game. I know they're going on the road again, but I think they are going to show up here. That win against UL Monroe, it's not like this extra time off is going to disrupt a win streak because they had only won 1 game there. And that was coming off of a pretty tough game against Rhode Island. I mean, Rhode Island was undefeated until they got upset by Brown, which, by the way, I called that one too. I wish I'd bet it. I liked Brown in that game. Rhode Island got caught in that game after Rhode Island was hot to start the season, undefeated. But UT-Arlington, they played well against Rhode Island, man. I mean, UT-Arlington's been fairly competitive here. They played some okay teams at the very least. USC is not that bad, and they played them at USC, I'm pretty sure, to within 3. So these losses really aren't that egregious for UT-Arlington. I mean, none of these teams are really that horrible. La Tech, not bad. Missouri State, I mean, I don't think they're great, but they're not that bad. And that was a road game. Murray State looks like they're not that bad right now. So these losses, and then Rhode Island, obviously, that was competitive. These losses are nothing to really like make fun of as far as Arlington. I think Arlington actually has faced a more difficult schedule than Arkansas State, excuse me, by a little bit. And the other thing about going on the road to Arkansas State here is that UT-Arlington, they like to play fast pace. So Arkansas State likes to play fast pace. That fits into UT-Arlington's game, man. They're not going to be thrown off by any sort of pace that's not to their liking because both teams like to play fast. So that's going to fit Arlington's style. So I think that's fine as well. So they're not going to be thrown off by that. And I believe UT-Arlington does have the better offense out of the two teams. They don't play defense. They have the worst of the two defenses, I believe. So a lot of times I do like to go and grab the better defense. But when Arkansas State is the better defensive team, but they're laying points, that's a tougher thing to do, man. When you're the lesser offense and you're laying points, makes it a little bit difficult to get up and over that spread, even though I know a faster-paced game is going to make it easier to go up and over that spread. But all in all, I think Arkansas State really just comes down to they just came off their win of the year, basically, against Memphis, man. So I think they're going to be the more tired team here because they have way less rest, and I think they're going to be feeling pretty high on themselves after that game. So I'm going to jump in and grab these points with UT-Arlington. That's the first play. That is the one college basketball play there. UT-Arlington plus 8.5. Let's move over to the NHL. We do have a big NHL slate, but I really don't like these games, man. A lot of these games, I'm not even sure they're really worth even discussing. I mean, Kings in New Jersey, that's a good game. New Jersey's up from down from minus 148 to minus 146. 60% of the tickets and 81% of the cash on New Jersey. I mean, as far as the situation is concerned, I don't know that there's really that much of a situation to really look at here. I mean, LA, they're playing well. They're hot. I mean, they just beat the Islanders to start the road trip. That was a spot where I said the Kings, maybe they're in a bit of a sandwich spot because they just beat Dallas and Minnesota, so maybe they wouldn't be focused on the Islanders, but it was the first game of a road trip, and a lot of times you do still focus on that game. You want to get it off on the right foot, and they did. So now I think they do have some nice momentum. I think that continues their momentum now coming into this game against New Jersey. They got Kemper back in net in that game. I don't know if he's going to play in this game, though. He may not, just because they may finally give him some rest after he's now played a couple of games in a row. New Jersey, I mean, they're probably going to have Markstrom in net again here. He'll play a couple games in a row usually. They're coming off a tough game as well, a loss to Toronto, or a tough game, I should say, a loss to Toronto. So I actually think the Kings are in the slightly better spot in this one, in my opinion. They're coming into this game with the momentum, but the cash percentage looks like it's on New Jersey. So I'll stay away from that one. I mean, what else we got going on here? The Islanders, I mean, they're coming off that game where they lost to the Kings. I would tend to think they're probably in a bounce-back spot here. They got Chicago, and then all they have next is another game against Chicago. So it looks like a game where the Islanders would show up. I mean, Chicago, they're now 1-1 under their new coach. Chicago's not played that badly under their new coach, though. I mean, first game with him, they lost to Winnipeg. I mean, can you really blame them for losing to Winnipeg? They were at least fairly competitive in that game. I know I lost a play on Chicago there. They were winning 2-1 early in that game, but what can you do? And then they turned around and they went on the road and beat the New York Rangers. So I know the Rangers are in a slide right now, not playing well, but they're still a pretty good team, and that was a pretty good win for Chicago. So does that mean they're going to be in a letdown spot and maybe even a sandwich spot because they do have the Devils up next? I think this is kind of a difficult spot for Chicago, so I would look to the Islanders in this one if I was going to play it, but the Islanders are a big favorite. They're down from minus 201 to minus 187, so something has moved that line towards Chicago, and maybe it's just a numbers move where the guys just think the Islanders, like maybe some pros just think the Islanders are too heavy a favorite here. I'm not really sure how to read that because the situation I don't really think is very good for the Blackhawks in that one, so I'm going to stay away from that one as well. And then a couple of big games here, some nice Western Conference games, man. Vegas is at Winnipeg. I mean, these games are pretty nice. These are the two big games here, the Vegas-Winnipeg one and the Edmonton-Minnesota. These are both good games in hockey tonight, man. We have a big hockey slate. Like I said, Vegas is coming into this game with 3 straight wins. They did not get caught in a sandwich going to Anaheim. They won that game easily. I think I might have lost on that game because they were coming off a win over Edmonton. They had Dallas up next. Looked like a tough spot, and Vegas still carried the momentum through. Now they're off the win over Dallas. They're going to play Edmonton again up next, but they're starting a road trip here. They have a bunch of days off. You know they're not going to be unfocused against Winnipeg, though. Do we think that that extra time off is going to disrupt their momentum? I mean, you could argue that because when you have a bunch of wins in a row like that, you don't want to go on an extended break, really. You want to keep playing, but it's not like they're going to show up unfocused for the first game of a road trip against Winnipeg, although they did just beat Winnipeg at home not that long ago. So is Winnipeg going to be focused on this game? Yes, I would imagine Winnipeg is also going to be focused on this game, and they're coming off an easy win over Boston, but it's not like they're going to overlook a Vegas team that just beat them not that long ago on the road. So I think it was just kind of an easy win for Winnipeg because my Boston Bruins had an embarrassing performance in that game. So normally I might argue that Winnipeg would be big time high on themselves after beating anybody 8-1, including, a Bruins team that's not really that bad. But this is Vegas, man. I mean, Winnipeg's not going to overlook Vegas. Winnipeg's down from -128 to -121, though. And I don't see percentages on this, so it does look like the line move is at least going in the direction of Vegas. I don't know how to really gauge that one, man. And then you got Edmonton, Minnesota. This is a big game. Like I said, Edmonton's coming off a nice win over Tampa Bay, which continues their win streak of 3 games now. Now they go out on the road for 1 game against Minnesota. They're going to be focused on Minnesota, man. Minnesota's got one of the better records in the entire NHL, so I don't expect Edmonton to not be focused here. And Edmonton did just lose at home to Minnesota on November 21st, so another reason for Edmonton to be focused here, even though they're coming off that nice win over Tampa. But this is going to be a little bit of quick road revenge, so I do expect Edmonton should show up in this game. Minnesota's got this excellent record here. I don't think Minnesota's going to take Winnipeg. Who are they playing? Edmonton. They're not going to take Edmonton, the other Canadian team. They're not going to take Edmonton for granted here, even though they did go into Edmonton and beat them. I think they're going to be serious about this game as well. But Minnesota's in the worst of the 2 spots here, man. Both teams, I think, only have 1 day off. Minnesota's returning home from a road trip that took them to the Pacific Coast and then to Utah and to Elevation, and they had to play into a shootout in that game, and now they're returning home from that. So I think it is a worse spot for Minnesota returning home from the road trip, and I expect probably a little bit of extra focus coming out of Edmonton. So I do lean to the Edmonton side in this one a little bit. Minnesota, I mean, they've been away since the 6th, at least. When you return home, you have these guys, like I always say, they have family lives to get back to. They have to get some stuff put away at home while trying to focus on this game. They're not going to be unfocused on Edmonton, like I keep saying, but I think Edmonton just has a little bit more reason to show up, and Edmonton's a nice road anti-public favorite in this one here, up from -121 to -138, so the market read does look like it's nicely on Edmonton here, with Minnesota getting a lot of the public action, 83% of the tickets on them and only 65% of the cash, so that number is telling you something, man, with Edmonton up from -121 to -138 as a road favorite. Do I want to play Edmonton? That is close, man. I mean, the market read is making me more kind of enticed to play Edmonton, even though I know you're playing a little bit of a worse money line price if you do like that. But that's telling you something with the team with the worst record on the road is the favorite. I mean, the odds makers are telling you they actually think Edmonton is actually the better team in this game. Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I do kind of like Edmonton in that one, man. And then I think maybe I'll still stay off of it. And then you got Utah, Colorado. Utah, I mean, I think both of these teams are in bad spots because Utah, I mean, somewhat of a bad spot. They just took that Minnesota team into the shootout. Like I said, that was a tough game for Utah. But now they do start a road trip, but they have to go into Elevation with not a lot of time off and go face Colorado. But I do think that when you're leaving to go start a road trip and you're facing Colorado, I do think you are going to be focused, even though they are coming off that big game against Minnesota. So maybe we'll see a little bit of fatigue on the side of Utah, but then on the other side, Colorado, they're returning home from a road trip. They don't really have anything else to focus on coming up next either. Colorado, long road trip. They've been away since December 3rd. They had a nice road trip where they went 4-1, and now they're returning home. So I think it's a bad spot for Colorado. Probably a worse spot for them because they're in the return home spot. Like I just said, that means home distractions come into play, and they may not really have full focus on a Utah team that really isn't that great. So Colorado, I think, is in the worst of the two spots. They're down from -185 to -170. So the line move does look like it's moving in the direction of Utah. It was a spot where I considered, does the over maybe make sense in this one? Because you might have two teams that are a little bit gassed and might not play totally intensely on defense. It's kind of hard to gauge that. I mean, I do play overs in situations like this. I've started doing that, and I think I'm only 3-3 on the season actually playing them, even though some of my leans have gotten there. But this one, I just don't think I'm going to play it. I just don't know, man. Something just doesn't read right about it to me, and the total looks like it is down a little bit from 6.5 juice to the over to a little bit less juice to the over. It is a higher total at 6.5. So I don't know. I mean, that means you are having to get it to go over a little bit of a higher total too. So I don't know. No chance of a push at 6 at the very least. But again, I do think both teams are in spots where they may. Utah, I think, should be focused, but they may be a bit tired. Colorado, I think they may be both tired and unfocused. And that unfocus is kind of the problem here, because I think when you play an over, you want the teams to be tired but focused, if that makes sense, kind of. So I think I've gotten caught playing some overs that weren't really the greatest either. I am playing one tonight, by the way, so I'm going to get to that in a second. But this one was almost going to be one of them for me, but I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know if Colorado's really going to be focused against Utah in this game, even though I know they don't have anything else up next either. But so I think it's mostly just going to be a fatigue coming into play on the Colorado side. If I was going to play this game, it would probably actually be the Utah side, but I won't be doing that. And then we got actually Boston-Seattle. I didn't even look at this game. I completely skipped the game. I skipped my Bruins. What the hell? What am I doing here? Let me handicap this on the fly real quick. Boston, we know they're coming off that embarrassing loss to Winnipeg. It did break a 4-game win streak for Boston. Boston has been playing better under their new coach, man, which started here in this Utah game. And what are they? They're they were 7-2. Now they're 7-3 basically. Not really. They don't have any overtime losses in that span either. So yeah, 7-3 in the new coaching regime. So that's not bad, man. And that was a bad, embarrassing loss. So I do think this is a bounce back spot for the Bruins here. After just getting totally embarrassed, even though I know it was a game against a good team, this is going to be a step down in class facing Seattle. Seattle's, they're coming off a shootout in a return home spot though against Florida, and a lot of times that puts Seattle at both a negative and a positive spot, though, in my opinion, because when you return home from a road trip like that, you tend to be a little bit unfocused, but obviously they were not unfocused against Florida. I mean, you're not going to be unfocused when you're facing the returning champs, and they played tough. They took Florida into a shootout. So after that, I think Seattle might be a little bit unfocused coming into this game against Boston. They did lose at Boston not too long ago either, but I don't think it's going to be like a revenge motive or anything like that. Boston is the road favorite here, but they're down from -115 to -113. But Boston's the only way I would look here, because Boston, they just got so embarrassed in their last game, my Bruins, and they've been playing better, at least under the new coach, better offense especially. At Seattle, much easier opponent to face than Winnipeg. Seattle's coming off a tougher game, and they were coming off beating the Rangers as well. So they came off a 1-goal loss to the Devils. They played the Rangers real tough, beat the Rangers, on the road. Not even just played them tough, but beat them. Then returned home and played another tough game against Florida. So Seattle's played a bunch of big games in a row, really. So, yeah, the only way I would look in that game is to play the Bruins. And then the game I'm actually on is a total. Like I said, this is one of those overs where you're playing an over on in a game with two bad opponents. So it's like, I don't think the public's really going to want to come in and play an over in San Jose, St. Louis. But that is what I'm going to do here and play the over in this one. This is a game where it does look like the totals dropped a little bit from 6 juice to the under to juice to the under a little bit more. I do see 50% of the tickets and 90% of the cash on the under. I don't like seeing that, but I'm not sure if it's going to turn around a little bit, because I looked at this game and I'm thinking, I think both of these teams have reason to be focused, because when you're the Sharks and you have a bad record, it's not like you're ever going to not try to show up for a game, because you want to try to redeem yourself, basically. But look at the fatigue aspect of this game for San Jose, man. And they're finishing a long road trip here. They've been on the road since November 30th. That's insane. Where they started on the Pacific Coast and then they went out east. Now they're coming back to the Midwest. They played some step-up opponents here, man, too. beat Washington in overtime, big win, and then off of that, they were in kind of a letdown spot, maybe even a sandwich spot, and got wrecked by Tampa. I don't think I played Tampa in that game. I think I did recommend the Tampa side, but it was like Tampa was a big favorite in that game. I did recommend playing the Tampa puck line in that one, and they definitely covered. They won and covered that for sure. So I was right about that one. Unfortunately, I didn't play it. And then San Jose had the returning champs. Florida lost that game too. And then they played Carolina. Pretty tough, man, in their last game 2 days ago. So San Jose, I think you're going to see some fatigue out of San Jose here. I don't know which one of their goalies is going to be in net, although Blackwood and Vanacek, I think, have both actually been playing somewhat decently. Askarov, I think all three of them have actually been playing somewhat decently, but they don't really have necessarily a primary goaltender right now, so you're kind of going to get a rested goalie every time with San Jose, but not necessarily a very good goalie. So I do think San Jose is at least vulnerable to giving up some goals, at least against an offense that might be focused. I don't see San Jose being unfocused here. I see them being tired, but they want to try to finish this road trip and pull back to 3-3 on the road trip, man. So I think they may be tired coming off that tough game against Carolina, finishing the road trip, but I don't think they're going to be unfocused. So I think in a spot like that, it's going to affect their defense more than their offense. So you're going to see less intense defense out of them, but their offense may be able to do something in this game. St. Louis, I mean, we know, like, Binnington is going to be in net for them. I mean, Hofer played in their last game, or Hofer. I don't even know how you pronounce Hoofer. I don't even know how you pronounce that guy's name. But Binnington is their primary goalie. He's been good in the past, but he hasn't been good this year, man. I mean, he's been vulnerable. The St. Louis team, I mean, they've played 3 straight games that have gotten at least 6 or more goals. But I mean, one of them was against Edmonton. We know Edmonton can really score. Vancouver and Calgary. I mean, Calgary doesn't really play good defense. Vancouver, yeah, I mean, they could potentially score as well. So, I mean, they did do that against some of the better, some difficult opponents, I would say, at the very least. But look at what St. Louis is doing here, man. I mean, maybe they'll be unfocused against San Jose because they are returning over a road trip, but I think they're going to be a fatigued defense at the very least coming off of that, man. And that was a nice road trip where they actually went 3-1, including a win over Winnipeg on the road trip. So this coaching change is looking good for St. Louis as well, man. With my Boston Bruins former coach, Montgomery, there. They started with him in this Rangers game. They beat the Rangers. They've been pulling off some nice wins here. So they are 5-2. Or 5-1-1, really, with an overtime loss in there since switching coaches. I mean, that's been a spark for them. So that's the one reason why I think St. Louis might not actually overlook San Jose entirely here, is because they don't want to fall back to 500, and they're playing with energy under this new coach, man. So I do think that they actually care more with the new coach in there, even though, yeah, I know this does look like a sandwich spot with it being a return home spot, coming off a big win over Vancouver with Dallas, and then the Rangers, and then New Jersey, Tampa, Florida. A bunch of bigger games up next. Yes, I do know. I agree with that. So I do think the spot is worse for St. Louis. As far as the side is concerned, yes, I agree with the San Jose side in this one as well. St. Louis is down from -210 to 201. 75% of the tickets and 59% of the cash on St. Louis. So they are public with less of the cash on them. So as far as the side, yeah, I think maybe a San Jose puck line might make sense here, but I'm still going to do it with the over. I still think we're going to see St. Louis maybe still playing with at least with motivation under their new coach, let's say, even though, yes, this is one spot where they may overlook their opponent a little bit, and they did beat San Jose not that long ago at home, but it was a shootout, so San Jose did take them into a shootout. That game did go under, landing at 5, but there were a decent amount of shots that came through in that game, man, and I think we're going to see the same thing here. I do think we're going to see tired defenses on both sides, so I expect goals to happen in this game, and the public might not like it because it's two teams that don't have good records, which the public kind of assumes, well, that means bad offense, but really it means not very good defense in a lot of cases. So I think we're going to see goals in this game, so I like it. And yeah, St. Louis, I mean, they are going to be facing those home distractions, though, at the very least, so hopefully the home distractions aren't too egregious for them. I know they've been away since the third, so they are going to have stuff to do at home. Maybe they won't be totally focused on this game. And then they do have Dallas up next. Like I said, they have a bunch of big games up next. It is possible they don't have total focus here. But again, I think just playing under the new coach, I think they'll have at least enough focus that I think we'll see hopefully some scoring in this game. So give me the over in that one. And that's the one hockey play there. Oh, we got a lot of comments here. Sorry, I was neglecting the comments section. What's up, Scott? Hot sauce content. Yeah. Thanks for the hot sauce tower as well. Which team will get last place? You mean in hockey? Urjo, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, Anaheim. I mean, based on how the odds makers are lining these games, it looks like they're telling you that Anaheim is the worst team in hockey right now. I mean, I thought that wasn't the case for a while, but it could be them. Anaheim's just been awful, man. I mean, they're being lined like the worst team in hockey, and San Jose has actually started playing better hockey. We got, some of these other bad teams like Chicago had a little bit of a spark with the new coach there. Philadelphia looked awful early, but they're certainly playing a lot better. They're definitely not the worst team. I mean, Montreal is a candidate for it. As a home underdog against Pittsburgh, I mean, that does mean that Montreal's not very good. So Montreal is a candidate for it, and Columbus is also a candidate. But Columbus, they pulled off some pretty nice wins over some good teams, man. So I don't think I'd be able to say it's Columbus. So I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't know if I'm missing. Am I missing any hockey team that's worse than that? I'm gonna go with Anaheim for that question. Let's look at the NBA here. We have a small NBA slate here. 3 games. I mean, it's Pistons, Celtics. I don't know what to even say about a lot of these games, man. The Celtics, huge favorite, down from 13 to 12.5, though. But they do have 69% of the cash, 68% of the tickets on Pistons. So the Pistons look like they're actually gaining some of the public action here, which the Pistons did just play the Celtics, and they only lost by 10. So they lost and covered at Boston not that long ago. But does that mean the Celtics are going to overlook them, or does that mean the Celtics are going to take them more seriously because the game was somewhat close? I don't know. But the Pistons are also coming off a big win over the New York Knicks. That was a nice upset win there. So they're playing a third straight road game as an underdog. So Pistons may run out of steam in a game like this. So they do have a lot of time off after that New York game. So they are going to be rested. Both teams are going to be rested coming into this game, and that's the thing. And Boston, I think they're going to show up for this game because they lost to Memphis in their last game. And I mentioned that was a weird letdown spot where Boston was treating that Milwaukee win like a huge win. So I thought they were going to get caught in that Memphis game. That was one of my bets on this show. I took Memphis plus 7.5. That was a winner. I think it was 7.5, maybe 6.5. I forget what it was. 7. Boston lost that game, and now Boston has the same amount of time off that Detroit does. They don't have bigger games up next, so I actually think the Celtics are going to show up in this game in kind of a bounce-back mode with nothing else to really look forward to here. And coming off a loss, I expect the Celtics will play well in this one. The Celtics, in the recent past, man, under Missoula, Celtics will lose one game and they turn around and they play a nice game after that loss, and that's been the case. Every time they've lost, they've played well, except this one against Brooklyn. They didn't play well because they were coming off that tough loss against Golden State. But other than that, they lose to these ugly teams like Indiana. They came back and they massacred Charlotte, basically. Well, not massacred, but beat them easily by 15. They came off a loss to Atlanta, and they smashed Brooklyn, which was a Brooklyn team that had played them close the previous time. They lost to Cleveland, and they didn't even suffer a hangover after that. They beat Miami easy. So the Celtics, they're a team that's well-equipped to bounce back, and that is kind of baked into their DNA that they bounce back. So I would probably look to play the Celtics in this game if I was going to play the side, which I'm not. Toronto and Miami is kind of a weird one because Toronto is coming off a game where they played pretty tough against both Dallas and New York. Now they have to go out and play Miami in this weird single road game. I don't think it's exactly the best spot for Toronto, coming off a couple of cuff games where they got handcuffed. No, a couple of tough games. Actually, Oklahoma City was a big opponent too, but they did get blown out in that game. But then again, going out on the road when you've been playing badly at home, not necessarily the worst thing, having to go out on the road. But again, they're coming off a bunch of tough games. They did actually just beat Miami. They played them in a home and home, and they went 1-1 against them. They did beat them at home in the most recent matchup against them. So is that going to mean Miami's going to have a little more focus in this game against Toronto? Maybe. So there are reasons to not love Toronto in this spot, but there are also reasons to not love Miami, as Miami's coming off, after they lost to the Celtics, they just crushed the LA Lakers with, that was, I think, one of those games where LeBron was just looking like he's got to retire and he's just way too old. Then they beat Phoenix, which I think was without Durant in that game. So those two wins while impressive, I mean, maybe they're not as impressive because of the state of those teams right now. But you know what is impressive? Beating the Cleveland Cavaliers. Miami, 3 straight wins here. Some nice wins there, man. Especially the Cleveland one. So they could be in a letdown spot because of that. They're coming off that Cleveland game. I just don't like the spot enough to play Toronto here. But I do think that probably the spot is worse for Miami because they are coming off that game against Cleveland. I mean, that kind of puts you in like the ultimate letdown spot when you pull off a win over the team that's been like the most hyped team of the season and that has the best record. Heat are laying 10.5. They got 54% of tickets, 79% of the cash on the Toronto side. So, I mean, that one reason is maybe one reason to kind of look to the Toronto side there, but I'm not going to do it, obviously. I mean, I'll just stay away. And then Kings-Pelicans, ugly game. Kings are up from 5.5 to 6, but they're public. 73% of tickets, 63% of the cash. I don't know if I see much in the, what did I just do? Oh, I'm looking at the source. Yeah, let's look at the source. I always do that. Let's inspect the elements, man. Let's edit the HTML on the fly for this ESPN website here. Sacramento's coming up beating Utah by like almost 50 points, and they beat San Antonio by almost 30 in the game before that. So they're coming off back-to-back blowout wins. So when you blow out teams like that, I don't care if they're teams that are really bad. You might be feeling a little bit high on yourselves if you beat other NBA teams by scores like that, man. So maybe we won't see a fully focused Sacramento team coming off wins like that. And then they do have Denver up next, which could be a look ahead because Denver's certainly an opponent that you're going to be focused on more so than New Orleans. But I don't know. Do I really want to try to take the points with New Orleans in this one? No, I don't. Even though I would slightly lean that way. New Orleans is coming off losing to that same San Antonio team that just got annihilated by the Kings. But so that's going to put the public even more on the Kings here. But we know the Kings are the better team. The odds makers are telling you this. But the New Orleans, I just don't want to deal with this injury situation, man. I mean, this team, they can't get healthy. I mean, they got Ingram back a couple days ago, basically, and he's hurt again. So he's going to be out for a while. He got hurt again, and then I don't even know who else has been injured here, man. I mean, they do have McCollum back, so he's been playing, and Trey Murphy is back. So those two guys have been playing, but they're without Zion, and now they're without Brandon Ingram again coming into this game. So the Pelicans just can't get healthy. I mean, it's just a shitty situation for them, man. I don't know what else to tell you about that. And now let's look. We don't have any college football today, right? Oh, no, we do, but it's FCS. The FCS playoffs are starting. Idaho and Montana State. I don't do FCS football, though. My apologies to Justin, our resident North Dakota State fan there, but I just don't do it, man. So I'll be talking about college football tomorrow with the first bowl game here, where I already mentioned I do like Western Michigan in that one. I don't think I'm going to play it, though, and we've lost the best number, at least with the 10, but I mean, I still wouldn't be opposed necessarily to playing them at plus more than a touchdown there. I do think it is the right side, and it looks like heavy market indicators on Western Michigan, which I'll talk about that game more tomorrow, but I'm here to talk about the NFL, baby. We're here to talk about Rams 49ers getting a nice game on Thursday night. Some of these games have been ugly, but this one is not one of the ugly ones. I'm going to play this game, and I do have the ticket in my pocket already with the 49ers minus 2.5. I know it's mostly 3. I see 3s with reduced juice out there, but I don't see 2.5s anymore, but I see 3 at even money. So if that's the way you want to play it, I would say, yeah, you could have that at minus 3. I mean, at the very least, if they win by exactly 3, it'll push. The plus 100 is not a bad price to pay there. So you're not really having to pay the full price for the minus 3 at the very least with reduced juice there. If you can find 2.5s out there still, obviously that's the way I would do it. Or you can maybe start looking 49ers money line. You might even be able to get it like minus 138 or something in that realm. So I like the 49ers, man. Rams have 65% of the tickets, 49ers 50% of the cash, though. So Rams are a public road underdog, the dreaded public road underdog situation here. That is not a spot where I would like to come in and play a team. I would look to fade a team like that, and this is a situation that I think calls for playing the 49ers here, man. 49ers, like I said, they've been up from 2.5 to 3 now, so the money did come in on the 49ers at minus 2.5. I know there's some pros that like the 49ers in this one. The market read looks like it is indicating on the 49ers with everything that I look at here. The total is up from 47 to 49 with 82% of the tickets and only 72% of the cash on the over. But I kind of like the over as well in this one because, you're looking at a Rams defense that is just not very good, man. And the 49ers have at least been vulnerable to the run. And the Rams can run the ball a bit with Kyren Williams there. They've been doing better against the run. And Matthew Stafford, he matches up decently at the very least. These are the only good things I can say about the Rams in this one, is that 49ers play a lot of like zone, like cover 3 defense and stuff, I believe. And Matthew Stafford does do well against that cover scheme. Or those cover schemes. But those are the only good things I'm going to say about the Rams here, because this spot is just bad for the Rams, man. I don't like the Rams in this spot at all. The Rams, we know what they're coming off of. I played the Rams on Sunday, and they beat Buffalo. This is a huge win for them. I know it was an out-of-conference game, but man, did the Rams put in a huge effort in this game. And the Rams had this game put away. It was 31-14 in the third quarter. I'm like, yeah, this game's over. And then they were still up 10. They were up, 17 going into the fourth quarter, so 38-21. I'm like, yeah, this game is over. And then Buffalo got back into the game. I know there were a couple of questionable calls there, especially that horse collar tackle, which was not actually a horse collar, where Josh Allen got grabbed. There was a tug to the back of his jersey. It was definitely not a horse collar. So that helped Buffalo a little bit. But Buffalo totally got back into the game, and then the Rams were able to get a late touchdown, missed the extra point, leaving kind of the door open there. But then Buffalo still didn't do it, even though they got a bad PI call in the end zone that was not actually PI. The Rams had committed PI before that on a 4th and 15 that was actually the right call. Terrible play by Lake, who had his back to the ball. Terrible. Rams defense not good, but then, I rehashed this when I rehashed my bet on this. I talked about this on Monday morning show, but yeah, and then the PI in the end zone was not PI. That was a terrible call. The defender just made a play on the ball, set up the Bills for a touchdown, but the thing was the Bills wasted a timeout because they actually decided to not try to throw the ball. They tried to run Josh Allen in, and he actually did wind up running it in for a touchdown anyway. But that meant the Bills had to onside kick it, which they did not recover, and the Rams were able to hang on. But that game, man, that was a huge game for the Rams, and the Rams looked like maybe they were ready to kind of put the game away, but the Bills came all the way back, and the Rams had to put in a full effort in that game, man. All the way, full effort. So the Rams are coming off that game against Buffalo. Monster win, monster effort game. I know this is still a big game against the 49ers, but quick turnaround time, and I know they're used to playing at San Francisco because they play there every year. So like I say, that mitigates the quick turnaround time a little bit on these Thursday games when it's a divisional game. It's not a whole lot of travel going up to San Francisco, but still, I think it puts the Rams at a disadvantage coming off the much bigger effort game than what San Francisco's coming off of, and having to travel at all, which San Francisco is not having to do. Rams coming off of that, I don't like it, man. I don't like the quick turnaround time for the Rams here. I think it is a little bit ugly. San Francisco, I mean, they're coming off a much easier win against the Chicago Bears. This game was put away early, where San Francisco didn't have to do anything in the later portions of this game. They're up 24-0 at halftime. They just kind of packed it in. 31-6 going into the fourth quarter. Didn't matter. The Bears got some garbage time scores to make it look even more competitive than it actually was. That was a nice win for the 49ers, man, coming off that ugly snow loss to the Buffalo Bills. And that's the other thing. The public is also going to be looking at common opponents and be like, wait a minute. The Rams beat the Bills, and the Bills absolutely thrashed San Francisco, and we saw that game on primetime. So you're giving me points with the Rams? How could I not take the Rams here? Yeah, it looks way too easy at this point. Shockingly, it actually looks way too easy to take the Rams here. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take the 49ers, as I said, I already did. For all those reasons, I think we have the better rest scenario. San Francisco staying at home. And then we look at the records. I mean, San Francisco's sitting at below 500, and that's another motivator, a little bit of an extra motivator. I know this is a big game for both teams. Both teams are in this cluster trying to win the NFC West here, and both teams are still alive for wild card as well. But the 49ers are going to be the more motivated team out of the two because they're sitting at 6-7. I think when you're sitting at 6-7 late in the season like this, getting to 500 is that extra motivator, man, because you don't want to have that ugly losing record, man. You're a losing team. You do not want to be a losing team, especially when you have a history of winning recently like the 49ers. You really do not want to be a loser this year. And I know the 49ers have been injury-plagued all season. I know they're going to still be without IU. Greenlaw is not coming back. They got some injuries. McCaffrey, I know, is out again. But this Rams defense is so bad that I think with Garendo. I know he's questionable. I expect Garendo is probably going to play in this game. I don't really care who it is for the 49ers. I think they're still going to be able to get something going on the ground because the Rams defense is just so weak. Brock Purdy, I mean, he matches up well against this Rams defense as well. I think the Rams play a lot of zone as well, and Purdy carves up the zone. So I expect Purdy to be good there. Purdy is actually 4-0 in Thursday night games. And say what you will about him, I don't think he's that great, but he does well on Thursday. I know the Rams also do well on Thursday. They're like 7-2 in Thursday night games or something like that. So the Rams, both these teams are good on Thursday night, or the Rams are good and Brock Purdy's good on Thursday night. So you get that kind of, those two things kind of colliding here, but still, 49ers, what you're looking at here is, I think both offenses are very capable in this game, and you're looking at the 49ers are the only team that has a semblance of a defense. The Rams defense is still awful, and the 49ers defense is still at least capable. I know the 49ers aren't very good at stopping the run, but they can at least slow down the pass. I know Stafford matches up well against their schemes, but I think the 49ers edge that they have on defense should be able to also be, that's part of the why they have the edge in this game, man. The big difference in the units here as far as what's going on here. The Rams maybe have, they have the somewhat better offense. The 49ers have a significantly better defense, even with those injuries. And I guess you can pay attention. Joey Bosa is injured. He might be coming back in this game, so we'll see. But the 49ers may be getting some of their defensive players back coming into this game. The Rams actually have a couple of defensive injuries themselves. So their defense is already bad, so not that that really matters. For all those reasons, man, I like the 49ers here. I don't know if there was anything else I was going to say here about this, but yeah, I mean, I just think this, it sets up nicely. Oh, yeah, and then this is also revenge, in-season revenge for the 49ers. So the 49ers lost the first matchup here, so what that means at the very least is that you'll maybe have a little bit of extra motivation on the San Francisco side. They really do not want to fall behind 2 games in the standings to the Rams and also lose the tiebreaker to the Rams. So this means more to the 49ers for that reason, man. They lose this game, they're essentially behind by 3 games against the Rams. But if they win, they're basically tied with the Rams. So that is a huge, and it looks like Garendo is going to play according to our sources an hour ago. So that makes this a huge game for the 49ers, even bigger than the Rams. Than it is for the Rams. The Rams are coming off, like I said, another huge game, or the 49ers coming off an easy game. Game means more to the 49ers because of the way the standings are going to settle. It's a huge difference between a win and a loss for the 49ers. Whereas for the Rams, I mean, they still are not going to be out of it if they lose this game, but the 49ers probably can essentially kiss their season goodbye if they do lose this game. But does that mean the pressure is going to be on the 49ers? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but they are used to handling the pressure at the very least. Both of these teams are used to playing in playoff environments, so I'm not too worried about that at all. We got a lot of experience playing in high-pressure situations on both sides here, so I'm not concerned about that very much. San Francisco, yeah, and they only have Miami up next. Nobody cares about that. Neither team is going to overlook this game. The Rams have the Jets up next. Also, who cares? Maybe a spot to go and look to actually play the Jets in that one, but I don't know because the Rams will have extra rest in that one, but whatever. So looking at this game, though, the Rams played against the 49ers. That was a big game for the Rams, but look, this was a misleading final score, man. The 49ers are winning this game the whole way. They're up 14-0 early. They're up 21-7 in the third quarter. Look at the graph in this one. The 49ers had the game. They were sitting at like 80-something% for almost the entire game to win the game, and then all of a sudden they lost right at the end after they were winning by 10 with like 6 minutes left in the game. They gave up a field goal, and then, I don't know, somehow, it wasn't even a turnover, I don't think, but the Rams were able to get the ball back multiple additional times. 49ers just were not able to do it. They had to punt again, I'm pretty sure, in there, and actually wound up losing the game. That was a game the 49ers totally dominated. And yardage-wise, 425 to 296. They did lose one turnover, which I believe it was a fumble in Rams territory at the very least. 49ers out first down them. They outpossessed them. It was total statistical domination by the 49ers, man. So this is a little bit of a misleading result here. And I know the Rams did not have Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua in this game. So yes, the Rams do have way more weapons on offense with those guys back, and the public might be looking at that too. So that is a factor, but I just don't think that it matters enough. 49ers are a 6.5-point favorite in this game as well. close to 7, which that would translate to the 49ers being like a 12 or so point favorite at home if that line was actually accurate, which we know it's not. But now you're saying the 49ers are 2.5 or 3. I think that's too much of an adjustment, man. I mean, we know these teams are not what we thought they were then. We know the 49ers have a bunch of injuries now, and the Rams got some of those guys back. So, yeah, the line should not be this extreme. But I think you still should be looking at the 49ers maybe 4 to 5 in this game. I mean, I think the 49ers are still the better team out of these two just because the Rams have such a bad defense. And it's being lined like the teams are basically even. So, interesting there. And you got, the San Francisco 49ers, you got them as a favorite, even though they have the worst record. So that's going to kind of skew what the public thinks about this game, like I said, as well. So all of that is coming into play here in this game, man. And again, this is a misleading result. I think the 49ers are going to remember this and be a little bit angry. The Rams have actually won 3 straight games now, I believe, against the 49ers. So that's coming into play here as well. 2 or 3, I forget which. But the 49ers may be a little bit angry about that. And before that, I think the 49ers actually had done a little bit better against the Rams. At San Francisco, I think the Rams are only like 3-7 in their last 10. That might not be right. You'll have to go look it up. But the Rams in their last several games at the 49ers at San Francisco have not done that well. So the 49ers have had the upper hand against them at home. So for all those reasons, yeah, I mean, give me the 49ers minus the 2.5, and that's going to do it for me, man. I will let you guys go, let myself go. I will get out of here now. Those plays one more time. Nate, thanks for showing up, guys. Nate, Scott, Urjo, thanks for showing up early in the morning here. The plays one more time today, long video today, are college basketball, UT-Arlington plus 8.5. Hockey, San Jose, St. Louis over 6 at reduced juice, minus 105. That was the best I saw it out there. And NFL, San Francisco 49ers minus 2.5 or minus 3 with reduced juice or money line. I like all of those. Any way you look at it, give me the 49ers, and that's going to do it. Tower Gang Toad. Go follow the Tower Gang Podcast. Follow me on Twitter, but follow the Tower Gang Podcast. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. Ridiculous episode last night, as usual. They're always crazy for the most part at this point. Patreon will give you access to pre-show, post-show. We had kind of a crazy post-show again last night. There's always some crazy content there as well. And you get to hang out with us in a Telegram, submit to the mailbag, which we're unlikely to read. And that's going to do it, man. Tower Gang Toad, Tower Gang. Let's have a good night. Let's get some wins. Let's continue the new streak as the slump was busted a little bit last night. I'm still a little bit below the break-even point this year. It's been a lost year for me, but let's get it done towards the end of the season, man. Or towards the end of the year. Let's at least do that. Peace out.